Hello and welcome everyone to the fourth and final podcast for Symud i Fyny, Moving Up. And this is the podcast that shares our experiences of a project across Wales focusing on really understanding and evaluating the experiences of multi-agency practitioners and young people who are care leavers of how young people want to work with and engage with services. So I'm Carol Davies. I've led on this 2-year Health and Care Research Wales funded project of research with practitioners and care leavers across Wales. So I'm just going to pass on now and introduce the other voices on this podcast today.
Hi, so I'm Louise Prendergast. I've been working alongside Carol on this project and it's been really exciting, and we are sitting at a table at the end of study symposium, which I think has been fantastic, and we've had lots of positive feedback.
I'm Lisa Jones and I'm section manager for our care leavers in Conway, and we've been involved in the project also since the very beginning, and for us it was seeing something that was really important to us really become alive with this research and today's symposium.
Hi, I'm Paula Shoesmith. I'm team manager for the personal advisor team in Conway. We've had a really great day here at the symposium. Actually, we've just been talking about how positive it's been and how easy a space it's been for our personal advisors to reflect and share some of their thoughts on the day as well.
My name's Siobhan Dowan and I work for the 16 plus team in Gwynedd as an aftercare worker. It's been a fantastic day of people coming together and sharing and reflecting and being further inspired for their work.
Hi, I'm Amy Thatcher-Jones and I'm the Senior Personal Advisor for Gwynedd and the team leader for the Leaving Care team in Gista, and I really enjoyed today meeting new people.
Fantastic, everyone. So you've got a sense of the voices here today sharing our views, our experiences of working together as a partnership on this project. So as the first kind of talking point, I just want to put it out there to everyone. We've had the end of study project symposium here today in Reichel Hall in Bangor, and my open question to all of you is, what's your key kind of learning point or your key reflection from today's symposium?
I think one of the key things for me is reinforcing the importance of research and practice. I think it often gets neglected and it's not something that we talk about or we focus on, but I think the work we've done over the last 2 years and the outcomes from that work really highlight to me the importance of bringing research back into practice and making sure that everybody knows it's important.
Actually, expanding on that, one of the key messages for me has been the collaboration, and actually the success of the project has very much been defined by the collaboration and the engagement from everyone through from the young people through to person advisors, managers, and the importance that people actually individually have taken on and the social responsibility that they've taken and said, actually, we need to develop this. And that collaboration has really come through today, but also it's highlighted the success of the project as well.
For me, I think it's not underestimating the role everybody can have in a care leaver's journey, and that we can all make a difference, and how important it is in working together for the better of the young person.
And for me, I've enjoyed being able to discuss my personal experience as a care leaver and listening to other practitioners who are able to show their professionalism and how the toolkit applies to engaging with care leavers moving forward.
Great, thank you everyone for sharing your reflections. Around your reflections of the symposium today, we've worked together in partnership across Bangor University, services in Anglesey, Gwynedd, Conwy and Torfaen. I think my next question is around, how do you think research and evidence in practice can continue to develop to inform services for care leavers across Wales?
So I'd like to see a little bit more of a kind of collaboration between, we were talking about it earlier, the practitioners and the research side of it and the people that are researching, because we were saying earlier, actually, it's by chance that this came about, and through discussions and links of who we know and how we can kind of link in with one another there. But actually, we're in a privileged position whereby I studied at Bangor, and that's where the links came. But actually, if we didn't have that, or we weren't practice educators for Bangor, who would we go to, and where would we go to from there? And I think it goes further than that just kind of frontline side of it. It goes back to the education, the training department, saying actually these are who we're linking in with, this is where we need to target. So I would like to see kind of a better collaboration with practitioners, with researchers, and also that freedom within services to develop ideas, and that comes from supervision, reflective practice, that comes from forums, and embedding those within practice as well. And part of that is time, and I get that, and allowing that forum for having space and time and headspace for people to do that.
I think you've just raised something really interesting there around reflective practice. And what I heard today throughout all the presentations was people's reflections around what you do well in practice, what needs to be developed, and really that promotion of social care support and social work support to have that same parity as other professions. So based on that reflections, how do you think we can really promote the advice, the support and the role of the personal advisor for care leavers across Wales?
I think more can be done, as in, I know there's a space at the moment in Gwynedd where there's a potential place to be able to make a leaflet with that information. I don't know if Conway already have that or anything. I think there was one in place before, but there's nothing up to date. There's nothing that we can actually give to the young person and say, well, this is what we're supposed to be doing. These are your rights, and this is who you go to if you can't get hold of us. I think we have the Barod app, and that gives a bit of information, but I think there's more detail that can be put in on just like a little leaflet. It doesn't have to be nothing big, but that will just show them this is what our roles are, that's what's in the functions of the PA, and hopefully that should be able to provide a bit more detail.
In England, they have a care leaver promise, and the care leaver promise covers everything really that the care leaver should be entitled to. We don't have that in Wales, but what we've done in Conway is we've built a website called Small Steps, Big Futures, and that is pretty much like what you're saying. It incorporates the care leavers' rights, their entitlements, and all of that stuff on the website. I think what we do need to do is, on a frontline basis, we've got personal advisors who really want to make changes and work with our care leavers. Certainly in Conway, we've got the next step of management that's really keen to do this. But what I think we really need to do is get senior management and leadership involved, because I think that's probably where we're going to change some of this culture. And we need them to come along with us on this journey, I suppose, in order to make the changes that we need.
It kind of goes beyond that as well, doesn't it, in terms of social attitude or public attitude towards social care, because it's just not cool to be involved with social care. It's not seen as a profession that's actually valued or kind of respected in a lot of cases, unless people are working on a one-to-one basis and I think they get to know the person. But actually, you look in the media, you see really positive influence around doctors, nurses. The strikes that are happening are all around doctors and nurses, but actually what you have there is a workforce of social care practitioners that are just ploughing on, and the voice of that gets lost. It's not. And what we see is usually practice reviews about how social care workers have done really bad things and it's not worked. We never see actually the really positive stories that you shared today. Those, they get lost in all of it. And actually, if we could better promote and change the attitude towards social care, perhaps that then becomes a kind of social change, a policy change, and it trickles down from there. But it's a huge scope of change that needs to happen for it.
Most definitely, because one of the things that we've heard today was the messages overwhelmingly from young people accessing support was all the outcomes, all the benefit that they gained from having that social care support from both social workers and also personal advisors. But we're too modest. When I was listening to all your presentations today, you were very reflective, but you were too modest around actually how amazing you all are, having worked with you on this project for a 2-year period and having known some of you for years, how modest you are. So my next question is, do you think we're too modest in social care and in social work, and do we need to promote our profession more?
I think that possibly goes back to the point that Paul has just made. You know, the work we do, the sensationalised work we do, it's the bit that we get wrong. So as practitioners, what we do is we constantly reflect on what we can do different, what can we do better. We know there's gaps in service. So, and I think it came through in one of the presentations, that we focus on those gaps, but actually there's a lot of positive things that came through there. But I think because of social attitude, etc., towards social care, we're almost trained now to look at those things we don't do so well, and they're our focus, and that's what we tend to, I suppose, promote.
So I guess part of that solution is promoting ourselves, promoting our profession, and actually promoting research, because the research here overwhelmingly has shown a key theme around the impact of positive, strength-based social care practice on positive outcomes for young people leaving care. You know, and them really voicing very clearly that we need to give social workers and social care workers a chance to provide us with the support. Kind of just coming to you, Louise, do you think that there's anything we can do through universities or through research to really promote how we engage with services to really improve evidence-based practice?
I think this has been a brilliant project because it has had that collaboration from the start. But what I was really interested in is what Paula was saying. Well, how did that come about? Because we know that researchers are really keen to do research, and they have those sort of like niche areas, but sort of areas that they're really, really interested in and want to forward. Because, I mean, I'm interested in looking about how things can be done better and collaborating with others. But are we working in silos? Is there a need to have better communication between practice and the academic sector, universities?
Well, you'd think, wouldn't you? I would like to think that actually there's conversations about research happening every day in every office. They're just not calling it a conversation about research, because we all talk about those things of what could we do differently, or this isn't working. And actually, if we develop that then becomes a research idea. And often you have 3 or 4 people saying the same thing, and it's often highlighting difficulties or changes that need to happen, but it's the confidence to move forward with it, isn't it? And actually, we spoke earlier about our experiences. So I'm 10 years into practice, Lisa's 25 years, and this is the first time we've been involved in research, and that's a long time, isn't it? And that then suggests actually it's not quite as easy or as kind of synchronised as we would want it to be. And actually, social care even is ever developing. The people we're working with is ever developing. So actually, the research should be ever developing. It just seems like it just takes, like you say, it's the synchronicity or the serendipity of it just landing at the right time.
What do you guys think are the key challenges of really influencing research in social care and social work? What are the key challenges for practitioners to be involved in research?
I think one of the key challenges, well, I think there's lots of different challenges, isn't there? We spoke about them earlier, funding and things like that. But from a practitioner perspective, I think one of them is time, because if we speak to practitioners, they will tell you what they want, what they feel needs changing, but they won't feel they have the time to do anything about it. And I think the other thing for me, and it's probably part of my own learning through this process, is a feeling that I had the lack of skills, the lack of knowledge to do research, and the confidence then to apply the findings from the research to practice.
And what do you think kind of influences some of those issues around having that confidence?
From my own perspective, we were saying earlier, this piece of research started some 2 years ago, but actually the conversation around this probably started between Paula and myself about 5 years ago. We knew that there was an issue with engagement. It was something that we felt we needed to do something about. But we didn't actually know where to go about it. And we had lots of different conversations. And at one point, we even considered whether we would have to do a master's ourselves in order to do the research. But it was that link with Bangor University that we have through Paula's training and through being practice educators. But it was that for that first 3 years, we definitely didn't have. We had aspirations, but we didn't have the confidence to do anything with that aspiration, I don't think.
And I think we've been lucky because actually in Conway we've had a change of senior management, and part of that has been somebody that's worked in the care leaver services, so she knows that kind of element. But actually before that we had people that were quite keen on the status quo, so to come up with different ideas, you often got a little bit of a kind of a barrier in terms of, well, should that be the priority right now? But actually we've got a forward-thinking management team that allow us to kind of take that opportunity to go back, have that freedom of thought, and to link in with yourselves as well. At no point have we ever had anyone say, no, you shouldn't be doing that, and actually inviting you in and kind of sharing it with our corporate parent team as well. So we've had the freedom to do that because of the senior management service as well.
So having that opportunity and that support to have that space to really link in with a research project. Coming over to yourself now, Sianed, being involved in the research project, I guess the question is, has it given you the confidence to be involved in other potential research projects?
Yeah, I'd love the opportunity to be further involved in other research as well. And yeah, we're just glad of yourselves all here that have started all this really, and we've had so much out of it. But the best thing as well is having the voices of young care leavers in North Wales, having their voices heard, because being a young person in general these days is a lot different than when I started working with young people 20 years ago. The social media wasn't a challenge like it is today. There's so much more challenges for young people. So, yeah, I'm grateful for it.
So research to hopefully address some of those challenges. That would be the aim, and working collaboratively, because you've mentioned that importance of that collaborative working. Amy, around that collaborative working, how important is that for you on an everyday basis?
I think many of the barriers that we face as PAs is the multi-agency approach and the lack of understanding for other areas in the authority, so other departments, for them to realise like the corporate parenting duties. And this is, I think, one of the main problems for care leavers at the moment. It would be nice to see them in the other departments having training, having access to this toolkit is a start, and I think it's a step in the right directions. And taking small steps into enabling that possibility of actually giving care leavers what they're actually able to...
What they're able to achieve.
Yeah, I couldn't think of that word, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I could see that on your face, and I think having worked with you now, I can understand your pattern of thinking, which is amazing. And I just wanted to explore, so as a result of working together on this project, so bringing that research into practice and building evidence-based practice, so one of the key outputs that we've designed together is a multi-agency practice toolkit. And for anyone listening on the podcast, please do email if you want to have a copy of this freely available toolkit that we're very proud of having built and led on from North Wales. But for me, from the toolkit that we've designed, what do you think we can achieve by sharing this toolkit with agencies?
I think it's going to be an amazing tool for other agencies, and I think for me, I feel very fortunate that I've built quite good relationships with other agencies, whether they be in the local authority or outside the local authority. That professional relationship being good and working in unity will help the young person achieve and move on in their journey. But I think some legislation, does need to be addressed in terms of the housing, where legislation goes up to 21 for care leavers, but we're actually supporting them till they're 25, as Paula mentioned earlier in the day. So that would be helpful for us as professionals in social care.
Great. And do you think, Amy, building on your previous comment around that corporate parenting responsibility, do you think that this toolkit can potentially help to promote that corporate parent role?
Yeah, I'm really hoping. When I started on the teams first and I seen the toolkit for the first time, I was in awe because I thought, oh my God, this is something that can really potentially help care leavers, and it's just another way of giving them a voice. I think if other agencies are able to read this, it gives a perspective of a care leaver's voice and what's important to them. And hopefully it will just instill the importance of communication, trust, and all the other things that are really important. I really do hope it works. I think a lot of agencies will benefit from looking at this and thinking, okay, and we'll look further into the corporate parenting duties. And there is, in the legislation, I read like the Housing Act, there is where it states the importance of multi-agency working, and that is really important for a care leaver to put them as a priority. But when it actually comes into workers working, there are slight barriers, and I don't think that is facilitated enough. We're supposed to be working together, and what we find at the moment is we're battling with them, and it's like, come on, you have a duty, and they're saying, it's either time or I wouldn't say ignorance, but I think it's just not understanding. But I really hope this toolkit will promote that understanding for the care leavers.
I hope what it will also do is provide a consistent approach, because I think for some of our young people, they have multi-agencies involved because they have lots of complex needs, and depending on which agency or which staff member or whoever they see, they get a very different approach. So I'm hoping that the toolkit will not only educate some of those agencies in relation to what it is that we should be doing when we're working with these young people, but also to provide this consistent approach so everybody is treated the same.
So having that framework in place, where there is that consistency around building strength-based practice, around good engagements, building on the enablers of what good and effective, persistent, consistent engagement working with looks like.
Yeah, so I think actually we've got more of a responsibility than just providing the toolkit as well. And I think we as the frontline social care practitioners need to be kind of embodying the toolkit and showing it in our actions, but actually we need to be disseminating it in a way that they understand what we mean by the multi-agency, what we expect from them. And I'd like to see kind of us all reaching out to our agencies that we use and saying, look, this is what we'd like to see, this is the evidence. And actually I think the toolkit brings a really humanistic view to it, because when you've got the young people's views in it, you've got the practitioners' views in it, I don't know how you look at that and think, oh, actually, I'm going to ignore that. So I'm hopeful that they see those points as positive, but I think we have a responsibility to disseminate it in a way that it brings the toolkit to life as well.
So you've just touched on a key point there around dissemination. So one of the things that we've aimed to do throughout this project is to share what we learn from the project, or the findings from the project, through the project podcast, also through key messages with practitioners, through the toolkit, through academic papers. So for me now, is there anything else that we can do to disseminate the key messages from this research project?
And from a management perspective, I've been looking at how we can adapt it in supervision as well, because it's not just a toolkit, it's our culture now, isn't it? This has to be embedded within culture for it to be successful, because actually we want each and every PA to represent it and bring it to life. So we've been looking at kind of how we can adapt it to supervision, but also what do we need to be saying, and how do we support people to really kind of embrace it. From a management perspective, that's really important to me.
I also think that we had a cohort of young people involved in the research project, but actually we need to go further now. We need to share this with all the young people that we've been working with. So we need to share it so that other young people know what it is that they can expect and the work that's been undertaken to support them.
And do you think this will support the role of personal advisors across Wales potentially?
It should provide consistency, because at the moment, so from my side of it, I've obviously got the team that we've got in Conway, but actually I've also interviewed a lot of people for those jobs, and the consistency that I've seen in personal advisors has been vast. So one of the questions that we ask at interview is around innovation. I want to know how innovative you are in practice and how you're going to support care leavers. So we talk about a care leaver not engaging, what's your innovative practice? I've had people talking about kind of social media, adapting their likes and dislikes, and then I've also had people say, well, I'd give a cold call. And there's a significant difference between that practice and the other practice. It's a whole kind of spectrum, and what we want to be seeing is people expecting the kind of the same from it, because I think it was early on in the research, so either in the initial stages or within the first podcast, one of the young people talked about being a twin, and actually, so that person's two twins in our service. One of them had a very consistent approach from a personal advisor, and the other said, actually, when my personal advisor didn't know what she was doing, I'd ask my twin to say the same to theirs, and they'd get a different answer. That shouldn't be happening in the same team, and actually I want every care leaver to be able to expect consistency and know that actually the answer they're going to get is an answer that's going to be supportive to them.
What I'm also hoping that we're going to achieve through this is a language change, and I think it was you, Carol, that alluded to it earlier. One of my big bugbears is talking about people who don't engage. And, you know, I can't do any work with that person because they're a non-engager. It really frustrates me. And actually, I'm hoping that this toolbox will actually change that language to actually, you know, we're not able to work with this person at the moment, so what do we need to do differently to engage them? And so we can change that mindset.
Most definitely. So looking at how do we achieve in a strength-based way what matters to the young people we're supporting, but also rather than saying, oh, that young person is disengaged or that young person is hard to reach, we're beginning to reflect on our own language, our own practice around how we work with young people to access unheard voices, and we move away from this idea of people being hard to reach.
And them being the problem.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
One of my favourite quotes has been from somebody that I've interviewed for one of the roles we've had, and actually it was again the engagement question. One of the things she said was actually, in order to get people to engage, I need to be engaging, and the emphasis was not put on the young person to engage with her. It was about what can I do to myself to make me engage with me. People want to engage with me, and it took that responsibility, and it was a really fresh perspective, because it's not something, it's always attributed to the person that's accessing the service rather than the person delivering the service.
I love it. I love that concept of how are we engaging. So the next question is going to be, so any tips now to the listeners around how can we be engaging for young people?
I think firstly, we need to adopt that strengths-based, person-centred approach. I think having a one approach, a one-size-fits-all doesn't work. And I think quite often that's what we see in practice. I think what we need to do is really take the time out when we are working with somebody for the first time. We need to find out what inspires that person, what interests that person, and we need to use those interests, those strengths. We need to build upon them to start to build our relationship with somebody. We need to make people feel really heard and that they are valued and important. And I think it came up in the presentations that they're not just a case. These people are individuals. We've got lots of young people with so many strengths. But because we're not doing perhaps some of the work that's in the toolbox, we're not able to assist those people to reach their full potential at the moment.
Paula, any tips?
Oh, see, I was going to go on a very basic level. I use humour. I use humour in any discussions about reality TV, and it seems to get somewhere. But genuinely, it's about being approachable, isn't it? And I'd like to think that there's a lot of the young people that I've got to know through our team, and actually part of that is just sitting down and just being like, are you okay? How are things? Did you see that thing on telly? Making a kind of light of situations rather than sitting there and being like, I hear things are awful, let's talk about that. And just really treating them like people, yeah, exactly. And humour with dogs as well, that tends to be my go-to.
Talking about both my dogs is always a go-to as well. There's lots of interesting stories. So we've got humour, we've got being flexible, strength-based, seeing people as people. Anything to add there, Sianed?
I think just to make sure they feel deserving of everything that any other young person should have, and they are valued and they are cared for.
Yeah, so that value. Brill. Thank you, Sinead. Amy, any reflections?
Yeah, when I'm trying to engage with the care leavers as well, I think the big aspect that is a positive, personally for me though, is being able to say, I understand, being a care leaver, I have that understanding and I am in your corner. That instantly breaks down loads of barriers. And when I started and it was said, you know, they probably won't engage with you and they're already saying they don't like you and they didn't even know me. And from that first meeting, and I've spoken to them, and we have such great relationships, and the majority, I would like to say, they do engage, but I think you have to show an understanding, and not within like a professional level. I think it comes into personal as well, and you have to say, well, and show, well, I'm only human as well, and show how important it is that they are equal. Like, to me now, I will say, like, I'm not more important and you're no better. We're equal, but I'm here to listen to your voice. That's important. This is your life. Everything is your decision. I'm just here to advise you. But I think once they realise, oh, they do actually understand and they want to hear my story. I think another important thing is what I always say, there's a clean slate here. And when me being a new worker coming in, I've said, I don't know your history. I don't know much, but you've got a clean slate, like we start afresh. It doesn't matter how you spoke to the other workers and stuff, like we'll get off from afresh. And that has worked really well. I think it's been like a breath of fresh air to some as well. They're like, oh, right, okay. And they've just done really well with engagement, yeah.
So building that relationship and not making any assumptions about some of the young people. Based on the interviews that you completed with some of the young people, Louise, what did the young people tell you around what makes an engaging worker?
So we've got definitely an informal approach, that the worker is sensitively persistent, but also what a lot of them said is that it takes time for me to trust someone, but also I still don't fully trust anyone, but that's okay. An important outcome. You don't need to keep working until they fully trust you. That's sort of just what I heard. Just enough for you to be able to have conversations and let them know that you are in their corner. What I think is interesting is that some other PAs have spoken to me, and I don't think it's a role that everyone can do. And I think it's very, very... I don't think that's jumped home enough, that it's definitely not something that everyone can do. And hopefully this toolkit validates your work, because hopefully, you can flick through it and say, oh, I do that. No, that's okay. Yeah, I do that. No, that's good. Yeah, I do that. I'm doing it right. That's okay. And the other thing I think is important is the need to revisit it. I think there is a need for ongoing research, because contexts change, don't they? I mean, we need to do this again. We'd need to revise a logic model. Logic models do need to be revised anyway, because contexts change. And then update a toolkit, I think, would be very important, because there's so many things we know. It's fast-paced, isn't it? Things change. So, yeah.
So listening to the young people is a key theme I'm hearing, and having practitioners who are flexible, personal, but also not everyone can do this job, because you have to want to work with people. I'm just going to come to everyone now, just to have your key or final reflections around what you've learnt from the project, and also what would be your one key reflection. So, Lisa, is it okay if I come to you?
Yeah, I think one of my biggest learnings is the collaboration. Like we said earlier, Paula and I initially thought we could do this big piece of research on our own, which was really quite naive. So I think collaboration for me is really key. And I think it is about how and when do we share the outcome of this, because it's a big piece of work. We're hoping to change service delivery for our care leavers. So we need to make sure that it's shared appropriately with those people who need to know, and where it's going to impact for those young people. So they're probably the two biggest things for me.
Thanks, Lisa. Paula?
So for me, I think I said earlier about I completely underestimated the social responsibility that young people are feeling, and they've been through the service. And actually, that's been really refreshing to see, is that they've seen good practice and bad practice and thought, actually, that's where I want to change it. And actually, that's not unique to one person. That's been for me, it was a theme throughout, and it was really nice to see. And hopefully that kind of embeds in future research as well, and opens door for them. In terms of reflections, I'm pretty much similar to yourself there, in the sense that massive piece of work, but actually I think it's only just scraping the surface. And whilst we're looking at kind of the person advisor side of it, often the relationships are completely shaped in the services that have been provided before us. So we need to be looking at how we target everyone from the front door to the benefits officer through to the care leaver, so that actually each and every experience they get is hopefully a positive one, or at least one positive thing that they can take out of it that overshadows the anything else they might feel, rather than it being an overwhelmingly awful experience and they just want to kind of be free by the time they reach 18. So it's looking at how we disseminate it in a way that those people feel that social responsibility as well, and hopefully we look at the managers to embed it and kind of senior managers as well. So I think it's just scraping the surface and looking at how we really embed it properly, and it not just becoming something for person advisors.
So that continued work,
Yeah.
the tip of the iceberg. And I guess also that reflections of a point earlier that we still and continuously need to develop evidence-based practice and promoting strength-based social care and social work practice. So is it a bit of watch this space, do you think, around future projects?
Oh, hopefully. I've really enjoyed it, but also I think that if we can actually shape the surface to better enhance it for our young people, and they feel like they want to engage and work with us more, then actually we're providing a surface that they want, and things can really change from there, can't they? And actually, if we're looking at the kind of ladder of participation, I would love to be at the top of that and looking at a service that's delivered for and by, and rather than it being a tokenistic gesture. So I'm really excited to see where that can lead us. But I appreciate it's not an overnight thing, and actually it's a culture change, and that's going to take a little bit of time as well.
So that culture change over time of sharing the messages from this research, disseminating the different outputs from the toolkits to the training to the podcast to the academic papers. And as Amy was saying before as well, sharing that across agencies to promote that corporate parenting role to support our care leavers across Wales. If I can come to you, Sinead, what would be your key learning point and your key reflection from this project?
I'd just like to thank Louise for saying not everybody can do the role of aftercare worker and a PA, and I think just somebody saying that for us is just validates us as workers, and that it is a special set of skills that you do need, and the appreciation of that. And my reflection is been reminded of what that professional friend means to a young person and where it can take them, and how amazing it is as a personal advisor or aftercare worker, social worker, manager, to hear at the end the young person succeeding in whatever that means for them. So, yeah, that's my reflections.
Brilliant. And just as a note for listeners, during the symposium today, we were looking at different experiences of working in a positive way, in a strength-based way to support young people to achieve their potential and their outcomes, and to remove some of the stigma experiences by young people living in care or leaving care. We also touched upon today around that often there was so much pressure on care leavers to accelerate into adulthood at a much faster and earlier pace than some of their peers. So we all have a social responsibility to remove some of that stigma on some of the young people who are care experienced, but also removing some of those pressures, societal pressures. So thanks, Sinead. I'll just come to you, Amy, around your reflections and also maybe your key learning points.
I think the key learning point in my reflections is coming from being care experienced myself, when you're talking from 20 years ago onwards, when I've come into the role of the team leader for our 16 plus team, I think I was thinking when I started working, I thought, right, oh my God, there's been so much change and this is brilliant, but still thinking, oh, it's not still quite enough, but that, wow, it has changed. But then when I've seen and I've come in and looked at the toolkit and stuff, and it's just got me really excited because I'm like, actually, there's still more to be done, but more is going on in the background. And the appreciation just from that perspective of being a care leaver and seeing how much work that everybody here has put into the toolkit, it just reinstates like, no, things are moving forward. And I think it's brilliant. I think I'm in awe with all the work that you've all put into it. I think it's, amazing.
Well, I think we're all in awe of you after your amazing presentation today and all that you've achieved, which is just awesome. And moving on to you, Louise, your final reflections, learning points.
I've really enjoyed being part of this research. I mean, I love being a researcher anyway, and I've witnessed some amazing stories, and I feel so privileged to have witness those, to listen to people's experience. I love that. So this is the practitioners and the young people, and really, really, really enjoyable. Also, I've loved this project because it has been a strengths-based approach. It has been looking at, hey, what can be done? What's good? What works? What matters? And not what you're doing wrong. And those are the sort of things that I think can make a difference. Instead of just like coming down with a hammer, we're just looking, okay, let's, what can be done? And I see these outputs as being brilliant. So I've really enjoyed it. It's been a really good journey. So and I want to thank all the participants who've been involved.
Brill. Thank you, everyone. And I think just my final reflections, having been qualified social worker 25 years this year, which feels like quite a massive milestone, and then having moved to academia, I've realised that with each year, I have more and more passion for social care and social work than ever before. And I think my reflections is that even though I'm in academia now, I'm very much a pracademic. I want to kind of conduct and lead and be part of research that means something to practice and means something to citizens accessing services across Wales. So for me, my key reflection is that my passion for social work, I don't think will ever move away. And I just want to be part of research projects in the future with key partners like yourself to really influence practice change so that we can promote our profession and that we can promote the importance of evidence-based practice. So just the final note from me, I would love to take this opportunity to thank you all for being part of this project and for sharing your views so openly and honestly as part of the symposium today, but also as part of this podcast. Thank you, and thank you deeply to all the multi-agency participants and all the young people who participated as part of our research project. And I think just the final reflection to the listeners, please do get in touch if you want any further information about this project or if you want us to share any of the key outputs from the project with you. Thank you for listening. This research is led by Bangor University in partnership with our fantastic partners from GISTA, Gwynedd County Council, Conwy County Borough Council, Ynys Môn Council and Torfaen Council. And we would like to thank Health and Care Research Wales for funding this all Wales research.